minutes after 11 o'clock. Beautiful Tuesday. Hard to believe it's already the 17th day of September, right, Rob?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, there's an event happening down at the Bellevue Public Library that I would like to recommend everybody go to. How many times have you ever read anything? Robin, we speak to authors all the time, and sometimes you have, many times, we have authors who, at the beginning of their chapter, they will have, like in italics, under the title of the chapter, they'll have a quote from this person or that person. And Will Rogers is probably quoted more than anybody I can think of. His name shows up in almost every book. Will Rogers is not just in Will Rogers' books. Is that the way you say possessive
That's
of Will Rogers is? Right?
Will Rogers.
But anyway, his name, right? You see a book written by somebody, and they will quote, Jesus, Mahatma Gandhi, Will Rogers, right?
That's right.
It is an amazing thing. And if we could have Will Rogers in the studio, I guess that would be awesome. But we've got the next best thing. Listen to this. Greg Malak is not only in the studio and ready to speak to you, but he's also going to be at the Bellevue Public Library. And Suzanne Brown is here from the library, so we're going to ask her some things as well. And Greg, listen to this. 29 years at the Will Rogers Museum and Birthplace as curator.
Curator, yes, sir.
Curator. Did I say that word right? Manager. Associate director. I mean, you got to know Will Rogers as if you were Will Rogers, I'm guessing. And the Will Rogers, you're the vice president, executive vice president of the Will Rogers Heritage. And you are going to be at the Bellevue Public Library talking about the life and legacy of Will Rogers, recounting the humble beginnings and meteoric rise of one of America's best loved humorists. And it's happening on September 19th, 2 days from today at 3:30 in the afternoon. It's a free event. WillRogers.com is obviously the website for Will Rogers. Greg Malak is in the studio, though. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Larry. Thanks for having me here.
Where is this? Where is the museum, what we're talking about?
The museum is in Claremore, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Claremore is northeast of Tulsa,
Uh-huh.
just off of Interstate 44 and just off of Route 66. Route 66, interestingly, originally named the Will Rogers Highway.
Really?
Wow.
So did he live there? I mean,
He actually did live there. He was born in the Indian Territory
Okay.
before Oklahoma became a state. And at that time, it was, as I say, Indian Territory, and that area of the state housed the Cherokee Nation. And he grew up on a ranch that his father operated. And the ranch was 60,000 acres in size.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy, that's not a ranch. That's a planet. Wow. And so this is where he lived, and the museum used to be his house?
He actually purchased the land. He told his he told his wife that they would move back there because show business, when he was in it, there were some negative connotations to it. So
we don't have that anymore.
No.
I'm glad we got rid of that.
Of course not.
So we told her, we'll move back there and I'll be a rancher. And so he bought the land.
Wow.
But then his career took off, and she says, we're not going to quit this. So after he died, she gave the land to the state of Oklahoma, and in a matter of a few years, the museum was built.
Wow. And how long ago was that? How long ago did that happen?
He died in 1935. She gave the land in 1937, and the museum opened in 1938, November 4th, on his birthday that year.
Wow.
And today, the ranch is still on 20 acres, and there are 20,000 square feet of exhibit space, and you'll learn everything hopefully you want to know about Will Rogers there.
How did he rise to the point, and obviously his writing is crucial, but how come his rose higher than other writers? I mean, what was it that catapulted him to that level that, I mean, even if you're not a reader, you know the name Will Rogers. You probably know a few quotes.
Exactly. He, what made him different is he spoke common sense. He spoke to every individual. People remember listening to him on the radio. He spoke for them. They picked up the newspaper every day and see his daily telegram. He would talk about what was going on and from their point of view. And he did it without malice. That was the difference. He didn't take political sides, be Republican, Democrat. If somebody needed to be brought down a peg, or we needed to look at something a little more closely, he made sure that it was done.
Oh, wow.
And he's always in the public eye because whenever someone goes to the movie theater during the trailers, there's always something promoting the Will Rogers Foundation.
The Will Rogers Institute is another entity. They're located in New York, and they raise funds for folks that were in show business that possibly don't have the care any longer, and that helps them out.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a different entity from us, but we do work with them.
So let's find out about you. You started with the museum 30, how long ago? How long ago?
I began in 1977 with the museum.
Well, how did that happen? Did you just say, "Oh, I need a job, I'll apply here"? I mean, or did you have a love already for Will Rogers? Or
I did actually have a love for Will Rogers, but what brought me here was the love of my life, my wife. She was working for an oil company. I was finishing up my graduate work at the University of Delaware, and she was offered a job at Skelly Oil. Getty and Skelly merged together.
Okay.
And I contacted the museum. They were about to look for somebody, and they thought I was the right person, so it was all history after that.
so you didn't start out as the broom sweeper. You actually were the curator right from the beginning?
Actually, I started off as a guide, and then worked my way up.
Okay,
Yeah.
like a docent? I mean, you were educating people as they walk through?
Right.
So what's in it? What's in the museum?
Oh, the museum, you could liken it best to a presidential library in scope.
Okay.
Because we have his original writings, we have his radio broadcasts, we have out of his 76 movies that he made, we have 51 of those that we show. We have his original letters, we have personal belongings. It just goes on and on. It's just an incredible museum.
How many movies did he make?
He made 76 movies during his life.
He is bigger than any of his characters. Is that fair to say?
He actually is, because what he did, especially in the talking movies, he started in the silent films, and he did okay there, but you had to hear Will Rogers in order to appreciate and really get. That's when he became a star.
Well, there was a way that he spoke, too, that if you've ever heard him, you can hear it in your head right now.
Right.
As we're speaking.
Right. And what he did is they would give him the script. He normally wouldn't read the script. They would just kind of tell him what the movie was about and let him take off.
That's a
Wow.
star. That doesn't happen to the newbie, right?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And it threw off so many actors because they weren't used to acting that way. So what you would do is when you acted with Rogers, you would watch him and listen to what he was saying, so you know how you had to respond.
Right.
And when he did, he just kind of tugged on your coattail, and you knew it was your turn to talk.
Oh, wow.
And that was the
That's pretty
movie.
Fascinating.
It was every movie he made, it was thinly disguised Will Rogers, no matter what character.
Is his character, his talent, is it genetic? Does he have children, and did they inherit that Will Rogers-ness, that Will Rogers-esque-ness, or whatever?
He did. He had 4 children. One died as an infant, and each of the children took a different aspect of his life.
Really?
His eldest, known as Will Rogers Jr., went into newspaper publishing. His second eldest was a rancher and a horseman, and his daughter went into the movies. She went into the movies and was having a nice career. She actually did not use the Rogers name because she did not want to be known as Will Rogers' son. She wanted to make it on her own.
Daughter.
Oh.
Right?
So-
So what name?
Yeah, what was her name?
She went by the name Mary Brooks, and as I said, her career was going places, but she was just so devastated by her father's death that she just got out of acting after that.
Oh, wow.
It was just too
Oh,
much
really?
for her. So.
And now, Suzanne, will there be a specific area at the Bellevue Library with just Will Rogers memorabilia and books and things that he's written?
Well, our talk is going to be held in our meeting room. We don't have a lot of material, but we will have a display of books that have Will Rogers quotes and other material. I don't know, do you have any memorabilia that you're planning to bring, Greg?
I actually will have a PowerPoint presentation, so I have a number of old photographs of Rogers, different aspects of his career and family.
So you're not doing like the Mark Twain guys do. You're not appearing as Will Rogers.
No.
You're like his friend.
I'm his friend.
Does
right.
it feel like you are? I mean, does it?
It honestly does. I got up 29 years and I went to the museum. I never said I was going to work. I just was going to the museum.
Right.
Because it was, I just never knew who I was going to meet that day or what I might be doing that day. And I just feel so fortunate because it wasn't a job.
Can you name drop at all? And I'm intentionally wanting this. In other words, people who maybe worked with him, maybe some names we would know that came to the museum. I mean,
yes. We worked with so many folks. The biggest thrill I had was meeting General Jimmy Doolittle.
Wow.
Of World War II.
Yeah.
Right.
But of course, James Whitmore, who did the one-man show, came through numerous times. The actors who were in the Will Rogers Follies Broadway production, Keith Carradine, Mac Davis, Larry Gatlin, Pat Boone, thinking back of other folks we had through Willie Nelson. The list goes on and on. It doesn't matter what aspect of they were in.
Were you called on to be like a consultant on films?
We did quite often. If people were doing films or they were doing, for instance, the Broadway production, or they were writing a book, we did consult with them because we wanted them to be accurate. It's very.
I would imagine that. So that's really important to you,
Right.
Is to make sure that we, as the general public, don't get it wrong.
Correct.
And that's almost like being the word sacrilegious probably doesn't apply, but it's along those lines of just distorting something that it veers from the absolute truth as you know it, right?
Exactly. He had over 2 million words published during his life. You can use his actual words. You don't have to make something up or adapt it in some way. There's something there.
When people use those quotes in their books, do they pay a royalty for that?
No, they do not.
They just rip them off, huh?
Do you have a cowboy hat? Are you going to wear a cowboy hat during the presentation?
Probably not.
Oh,
probably
okay.
not. I'm transplanted from the East Coast, so I'm truly not an Oklahoman, although I feel like it.
Oh, are you going to be dressed up as a cowgirl, Suzanne? Do you have a special attire for it?
Actually, no. Thursday is International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Oh.
So, alas, I will be pirate garbed.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
It's Talk Like a Pirate Day.
On Thursday.
Oh, wow. And Will Rogers Day.
So I really think that Greg should give his talk in pirate. I think I'm going to get voted down.
Other than ARG, what does a pirate say? Other than ARG?
Well, you have to sit there and listen to him, or else you'll
Are you
have
one of those women that fell in love with Johnny Depp?
No.
Sorry.
There you go.
I don't get the whole pirate thing. I mean, aren't pirates thieves? Why do we celebrate them?
I don't know. There's just something.
Just fun, right?
Yeah, it's
you get
just
to wear
fun.
boots and a sword.
And that's the whole thing for Talk Like a Pirate Day. We really don't answer the phone. Arg! Thank you for calling the Bellevue Library. State your business or walk the plank.
Great.
But it gives us a chance to act silly.
So let's talk about the library. Let's talk about the presentation that Greg is going to give. And let me just reintroduce you, both of you. Suzanne Brown is here from the Bellevue Public Library, and Greg Malak is here. He was 29 years the curator of the Will Rogers Museum and birthplace in Oklahoma. What was the city again?
Claremore.
And he's here to do a presentation. Actually, do you live here now?
Actually, I do. I live south of here. I live in the Villages today.
Oh, okay.
So.
I was going to guess that.
Oh, nice.
Really?
Well,
What gave it away?
I don't know. It's like a lot of people who move here go to the Villages. I don't know. It just seems like it's just the place to go. And so many people there. So you will be present. Now, is this an event for all ages? It's free. I know that much. So,
I hope it is. I expect that we'll have a number of folks that probably remember him, but I would like to have younger folks there so I can introduce Will to them.
now he was apolitical,
He was.
but both parties use his quotes.
Both parties used his quotes, and he was very careful to speak after both parties. He didn't pick on anyone, and if you were in power, you wanted to be noticed by Will Rogers, because if you if he wrote about you or he spoke about you, you knew you were somebody.
So he wouldn't write bad. He would only write good. In other words, if he didn't like me, I wouldn't see my name in his writings.
Oh no, he would write it either way.
So he didn't mind slamming a few people here and there.
He would do it if they needed it, but he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it in a way that was personal. It was more the idea or what you were, the concept you were presenting, not a personal attack on you.
Was he embraced by the journalists?
Oh gosh, yes, yes. He was syndicated. Now, realize this is in the 1930s. He was syndicated by 600 newspapers.
That's huge.
That was 40 million readers
Wow.
in 1930s.
That's unbelievable.
Right. And one of the things I remember so distinctly is when folks would come in. When I first started working there, a number of folks remembered seeing his movies and reading his articles in the paper. And when they would walk into the museum, there was a huge statue of Will Rogers, and they would walk up to it, and I could tell by the way they were gazing at the statue that they were remembering something he said or something a movie that he appeared in that just brought back memories to him.
Now, what do you think is a favorite of his fans? I'll just group everybody as fans. And where I'm going with this is, do you think it's the books or the movies?
Probably the books.
I would think so. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. I mean, what do I know? I mean, you basically work with him in his absence. The reason I brought up the age of the attendees at the presentation you're making, I'm wondering how many younger people never even heard the name Will Rogers who will suddenly be interested in learning everything they can.
I hope they come and listen and want to learn more, because what you see in Will Rogers, the honest, wholesome, down-to-earth individual who made his career in every facet he went into was a success, is true and honest. You're not going to find anything on him. There's not a scandal. As many people have written books and have done documentary films on him.
Right.
We open up the archives to him. There's nothing hidden.
So he's a one-woman man. He got married and stayed married. That was it. Huh?
He did. Yeah. He courted his wife for 9 years before she finally married him.
Her choice or his?
Both. He was on the road a lot, and just didn't want to settle down for a bit. And then finally they got serious about it. But then they were married after being married in 1908, they stayed married till he died in 1935. And one of the quotes that he used very often was, "When I met my wife, Betty, that was the star performance of my life." And he honestly believed that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
When you left the museum, did you have a say-so as to who replaced you?
Fortunately, I did.
And I love the word "fortunately" because I had a feeling that was important to you, to make sure the person who took your job did your job.
Right. Because it's a job, but it's more than that. You have to have that love and that passion for what you're doing. And if you're just going to go in and work 8 to 5 every day, you're not going to give it your best. It's much more than that.
Is it fair to say, and it's a multiple choice question, 2 choices, Will Rogers, A, influenced America, or B, Will Rogers reflected America? Or are they both true? Maybe there's a C.
They
both
actually are both true. He
Really?
did reflect what people were feeling, but he also made some statements that caused politicians to stop and think and reconsider the course we were taking. So it was both.
We need one now.
We certainly do.
We need a Will Rogers.
Yeah.
Is there anybody right now who comes close?
I'm asked that so often, and unfortunately, I don't see that person out there. I just don't. People today, for whatever reason, don't have that same feeling, and somehow we've become a little more polarized.
Right.
And
And everybody's so self-conscious about saying something politically incorrect or politically irritating, I guess.
Right.
And
right. You have to speak your mind. You have to be truthful. And he did that. Again, there was no malice in it, but if something needed to be said, he said it.
And museums preserve legacies, and libraries make sure they bring those legacies to life. So when a person checks out a book in the library, they're actually going into the written words, and they can picture themselves with that particular person, like Will Rogers, at that particular time.
Definitely, and if you're somebody like me who was born years after he passed away, that's your really only
was that a pirate
link
thing?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yes.
who were his influences? I mean, when he was a young man, who was he reading? Who was he inspired by?
He, as I said, he grew up in the Indian Territory. Understand, this is the Cherokee Nation, so he's out there with Native Americans,
Okay.
and he's out there with freed black individuals. So he's learning.
I thought that was a guy's name at first. Freedman
Yeah.
Black.
I know.
Okay, freed black individual. Gotcha. The former slaves. Okay.
So he's learning from them, and I think that gives him the whole idea of equality and of the brotherhood of all peoples.
Ah, that greatly molded his thinking, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah. Okay.
How else could he say, "I never met a man I didn't like"?
There you go.
Without that.
And who were his parents? Were they Native American? Or?
They both had Native American blood. His mother and father, both. Mary was his mother. Clem was his father. His father fought in the Civil War, was a judge in the Cherokee Nation, and was a senator in the Cherokee Nation, and then later served on the Constitutional Convention. So he had all the opportunities of schooling.
Mm-hmm.
One thing he would probably always say he regretted, and I know he said he regretted, is that he didn't take advantage of them.
Oh, I see.
He had probably today what you would consider a junior college education. He went to school for 10 years in 6 different schools. So that kind of tells you the kind of focus he had in school.
Yeah,
Because he was, I think he probably couldn't sit and focus on things the way that they thought you ought to do.
Yeah.
And today we would call that a different. We would take that into account. But back then, no. But he was well read.
Mm-hmm.
He was well read.
Do you know when we transmit electricity, we have long distances sometimes between the transmitter and the end product, and in between the beginning and the end, there's often a secondary transmitter to kind of boost the power. Do you think this is like a Barbara Walters kind of a question, but do you feel like he is that secondary boost of power from the founding fathers? Did he take the ideals that they made this country out of and remind us of them? Did he do that? Did he kind of catapult that electricity a little bit halfway between them and us?
I think he did, and in his times also the country was changing. The West was beginning to close, and we were changing the type of society we were, and he was kind of that bridge in between.
I like
areas.
that word, bridge, yeah. Well, this sounds like a wonderful program that you are going to have. How did this happen, Suzanne? I mean, did Greg walk into the library and say, I got an idea? And
Well, we are very fortunate. Greg actually worked for the library system for a number of years. He just recently retired as
Oh,
branch
really?
supervisor from the Forest Library. And as we are the closest Marion County Library to the Villages, he is now one of our patrons. And my boss, Lee Schwartz, he is a moving, shaking kind of guy. And
Oh, yeah.
if he knows something about somebody, he will use that. And he managed to talk Greg into coming and giving this talk for us.
oh, what an opportunity for us. I hope you realize that we are the ones in gratitude to you for bringing this. I mean, the word Americana gets thrown around a little bit too often, I think. It's applied to music now. It's applied to
Yeah.
so many things, right?
Art.
This is Americana, though, right? The Will Rogers story, the Will Rogers collection, right?
You can't get any more American than Will Rogers. He was
Yeah.
a Native American. He was a
There
cowboy.
you go. Exactly.
He was all those things. So yeah. He and no matter what he was, as being a movie star or radio commentator, a journalist, lecturer, he was it. He was it. He incorporated all those and was truly American.
I can't imagine anybody more fitting to do this, Greg, than you. You obviously are beaming just talking about this man you never met.
I feel like I know him, though.
You probably feel like it, yeah. What an honor to have you in our studio. Thank you both for coming in. Greg Malak will be at the library in 2 days. If you liked what you just heard, you're going to love it in person. There's a, what do you call it again, the presentation?
Will Rogers, the Man and Legacy and Legend.
Okay, that's the name of it, but you have a PowerPoint.
I have PowerPoint,
which
yes.
is what, like a slideshow? Is that what that means?
Yes, it is. And actually, I'm not a technical person. My
You would
wife,
think I would know this.
I married a beautiful woman who does that for me. So.
Okay. Because just for the people who know, it's not an overhead projector. It's like slides, right? It's
Correct.
Actual pictures. Okay.
Actual pictures.
Will you have audio of his voice? Will you be hearing anything?
I did not bring any of that, but I certainly can tell people where they can listen to those tapes and where they can watch those movies and purchase those movies. So it's all available out there today.
That is
My brain is still trying to figure out who today fills his shoes. I don't know. Greg and Suzanne, thank you for coming in today. Have fun on Thursday. For the listeners, don't miss this. Okay, let me remind you, it's 3:30, correct, Suzanne?
3:30.
3:30 in the afternoon, of course, on Thursday, 2 days from today. It's free. And everything you've ever wanted to know about Will Rogers right there from a guy who knows him better than his own family probably did. Greg Malak, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Where did you start out? You went to Oklahoma, came to the Villages. What was before Oklahoma?
Before Oklahoma was a short stint in Delaware, but I grew up in upstate New York, up on Lake Ontario.
Okay. So you went down, then over, then over. Okay. I'm picturing the line. Thank you both. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks.
The website for Will Rogers is willrogers.com. We'll take a little break, and we will be right back.
We're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. Our tractor services include bush hog, disking,